Hello, hello, and happy, what are we calling this? Wait, I saw somebody call it and I loved it. We're calling it Happy New Moon Eclipso Grade Week. We got a lot going on. If you are new to my channel, welcome to Soul Coach Studio. I'm Soul Coach Michelle, and I am your co-creative life coach and friendly neighborhood super woo. And I'm wearing my earbuds today because my little puppy, well, he's not little, he's like 9. He's sleeping behind me, and sometimes he wakes up in his sleep and he barks because he hears something, or he'll just bark in his sleep. So I wanted to kind of like mitigate that. So we have these on today. So yay, lots of stuff going on. Now I want to be really clear. Do not freak out because there's a lot of energy moving through. Hey, good morning, Sharon. Oh, thanks for and thanks for saying hello because it reminds me to say, hey, if you are here live, go ahead and say hi in the chat. If you are watching the replay and you have questions about anything I share today, just hit hashtag replay so I can come back and say hello. I am assuming that I know we're on YouTube because Sharon said hello and that's where she's watching. And on Facebook, if you are there, say hello. I'm not sure if those comments will come through. Sometimes Facebook is wonky about like whether or not it lets comments through. And per Nashville weather, I am back in my fuzzy sweater, which I love because it's chilly today. It was like 80 last week. It'll be 80 at the end of the week. But anyways, welcome, welcome, welcome. And this week is one of those weeks that it's not bad. Like March was just like, what? April has been, the first half of April was kind of like, okay, that was it. I need a breather from last month. And the way I've been describing it is the second half of April is going to be what am I going to do with all this information? So just because, and I'm going to move this because it's bugging me. So the way that I've started explaining March to my private clients is March was kind of like, your shadow closet, which I've been talking. If you haven't watched my shadow videos, I've just done them. They were last week. The replays are on YouTube in their own little playlist. But anyways, the way I see shadow work is your shadow is your authentic self. It's not this bad, evil thing. And it loves you so much. And it knows that your conscious mind can't necessarily cope with all of the weird stuff. And plus, like when people tell you when you're acting in this creative, beautiful way, and somebody's like, you need to chill out and not shine so bright because I'm uncomfortable with you. And we internalize that. And it goes in the shadow closet. And our shadow's like, I'm gonna hold the door closed because I know you can't deal with this right now. And we'll just hold it in here until we can deal with it. And then, much like the cartoon closets or, sitcom closets, like somebody's like, don't open that. And then all of a sudden somebody opens the door or your shadow just can't hold it closed anymore because there's just so much crap in there and it bursts open. And March was the bursting open and your stuff going everywhere. Okay. Like, and I had one client, she was hilarious. She goes, my closet has burst open and I am sitting amongst my shit, my shadow shit from the closet going, okay, I need to figure this out. So that was March. Then the first 2 weeks of April, which are kind of coming to a close, like this is our third week, right? So the last 2 weeks have been kind of you sitting amongst your like what flew out the closet and what do I need to like kind of deal with. So there may be things that you're looking at saying, okay, well, that's an interesting thing that I kept in there, but I don't think I need that anymore. So I'm going to toss it. And then there might be, oh, well, I really liked that, but somebody told me they didn't like it. So maybe I need to keep it and look at it again. So we're kind of going to Marie Kondo over the next 2 weeks, the stuff that flew out of your shadow closet. Now, what does that really mean? And what energetics are supporting that? So this week, so it's Wednesday, we have a new moon in Aries, the second one in the, in the month, basically, not this month, but when you look at it from a lunar cycle, from an astro cycle, the first new moon in Aries was kind of like, hey, what you doing? What do you want to be when you grow up? And this one is much more because we also have a hybrid lunar eclipse happening, which I'll explain that in a second, along with it. So it's like a new moon on a new moon. So it's like a extra new moon, which means like you've had a month to kind of ponder. So that's why I say you've been sitting amongst your shadow stuff for about 2 weeks, kind of looking around and going, what am I going to put in a bin and give to Goodwill? And what am I keeping that I need to kind of like polish up a little bit and deal with so that I can actually take it out of my closet and be like, you know what, I'm okay with this. And if somebody else isn't, I don't really give a shit. So that's kind of the decision making that maybe has been going on or being presented to you over the last 2 weeks. Because, when we're coming up on an eclipse, which is a biggie, you have these like month long, like, hey, here's what's coming, the previews of the movie. So there's that. And so this week and next week and all the way into 2025, this eclipse stuff, which will be lots of shifts and changes and unexpected ones, where when we come out of this at the end of this, it's going to be like, oh, I look back, it's almost like how fast like 2019, 2020, 2021 was, and part of 2022, where it was like every minute you were a new version of you. That's the eclipse is how that actually works too. Like you're gonna start to this week, and like in a year, you're gonna be like, whoa, I can't believe that's who I was back then. And it's really going to be an interesting shift. And people will leave, whether they leave like as far as like these, our energies aren't matching, we're going to go our separate ways, or people transitioning, people and pets transitioning. There might be uncovering of information, because there's also this Mercury retrograde aspect too. So know this. I want to be really clear, this is not a time to go and hide under the bed, okay? Unlike what other fear-mongering people are gonna talk about, that's not how I roll, and that's not how I'm going to encourage you to, navigate this. So, you have 3 choices, because it's all about your choices, and I'll get kind of deeper into this in a minute as to what those are around. But your 3 choices basically, are you get to stand on the beach. No, it's all gonna happen on a beach, so at least you're at the beach, in my mind. This is how I'm envisioning things. So we're standing on the beach, and, the ocean is coming, and it's just the great waves are crashing. It's just this lovely, but maybe a little bit not stormy, but because of the moon, we got a little more action going on than normal. And so you can stand there screaming at the ocean, hating all these big waves, because you just want to go and kind of like float around on your pool noodle. And the fact is that the ocean's like, mm-mm, honey, no, we got to learn how to swim in this one. So you can either swim or you can stand there and like scream at me, but I'm not going to change. So the energy is basically like, come on in and hang out with us, but know that you're going to have to do some work. But if you want to stand on the shore and scream and be upset and be a cranky little, whatever about what's going on, that's totally cool. It's your choice. Again, your choice. If you don't want to deal with your stuff and you want to just collect all your shadow shit and shove it back in the closet, have at it. But I don't recommend that, but you can do that. So choice number 2 would be wade into the ocean. Now, I used to live on the coast. I grew up in Long Island, so we were at the beach all the time. And so one of the things you might do when the waves were a little bit more energetic than normal would be you just kind of wade out into to about hip, maybe just below your hips, between your hips and your knees. And as the big waves come, you jump with the wave so that it doesn't hit you. You kind of break it, but you float with the wave, and it might carry you hither and thither. But you're kind of in that hybrid mode where you're like, I'm just going to accept what's going on, and I'm just going to kind of bob around here. I'm not going to do a lot. I'm just going to kind of check out what's the landscape and let it kind of feel a little bit more comfortable. And then there's the choice where you just swim on out and you turn around when you see that wave coming and you ride that sucker into shore. And that one is a little bit more like, I got to do some work, but I'm going to coast in once I do that work. So there are the 3 choices. Now, when we think about it from that perspective, what's going on is the invitation for the week is, okay, we got this new moon in Aries with a what we call a hybrid eclipse in Aries. Aries, let's break it down. Aries is you, your individual, how you show up, your authentic self. Who am I creating in the world for other people to see? Who do I want them to see? Okay, so who do I want them to see? This is a biggie. Listen, okay, because if your shadow is your authentic self holding the stuff back in the closet that other folks have told you don't shine that bright, because the people don't like that much creativity. People don't like that much assertiveness. People don't like, oh, because they're afraid. Not you're afraid, they're afraid. And then we bought into it, and in the closet it goes. Aries is about you deciding, do I keep all that shit in the closet, or do I embrace my authentic self and sort through the things that feel good to me as they show up? You know, coming out and talking about, my unpopular opinion of the fact that your shadow is not this evil thing that needs to be done away with. Your shadow is part of you forever and ever, because as part of the human experience is the contrast of what I like and what I don't like, and interacting with other other spiritual beings having a human experience, which they may be in different places than you. So you may be talking about something and someone either doesn't get it or is intimidated, or it triggers an insecurity in them for whatever reason, and they say something out of their fear lens, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that me doing this would make other people upset, and so I'm going to hide that away. And it's really like, can I make them feel upset? No. I mean, unless you like are intentionally trying to make someone feel upset, which I don't think most people are. And if you are, that's a whole different monkey, but that's not what I'm talking about. But if our intention is to uplift through our gifts, whatever they may be, cooking, medicine, psychic gifts, healing arts, creating art in general to like help people have a lovely outlet to look at something beautiful, stuff like this, and somebody's telling you, "Oh, don't do that because nobody makes money at it," or "Don't do that because the person next to you might think that they're not as good as you," or some garbage of this nature. That's what goes in the shadow closet, and we keep it in there, and our shadow's like, "I get that your conscious mind can't handle this right now, so I'm gonna hold it back." But we're at that moment in time, like I said, where everything's kind of popped out and laying around, and you have a choice to either shove it all back in, sort it and kind of like slowly go through it, or just start really Marie Kondoing that shit and getting things done where you're embracing your shadow as your authentic self. And what happens, the reason we call it a shadow sometimes is the way that we react to that holding back of stuff, that because we get triggered because it's like, I don't want to have stuff in my shadow closet. I want to shine. I want people to know the authentic me and love me anyway, or love me because of it. And I'm resentful that I put it in there because some person decided that their fear was more important than me shining. Mm. And I agreed with them. That's your shadow. And so basically, your shadow is what happens when you're out of alignment with your soul purpose and who you really are. Okay. And so this week, this Aries invitation of how do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to be? Like, what do I want to present, regardless of what other people are thinking? Because when I put my authentic self out there, people will show up. The ones that want to be around you, the ones you want to be around you will show up because you're being who you're supposed to be. Now, that's the Aries invitation. The new moon and the eclipse, the new moon is you actually showing up and saying, I intend to do this, right? Because new moon is about planting seeds, intentions, gratitude for the other stuff. I always include gratitude in all the moons because it's never never a bad time for gratitude. It's always a good time for gratitude. So thanking for what's happened since full moon to now, and the information, because again, 2 weeks ago when we had our full moon was when this all started, of looking around and going, oh, I notice my part of my authentic self is I like to do this, that, and the other, or it behooves me to take a rest, even though I was programmed that resting is bad for you. And I'll probably share that in an email this week because I'm talking a lot about shadow again this week. Um, but this week, the new moon is inviting us to make those changes, to saying, who do you want to be? What intentions do you want to set, new moon, about who you are and how you show up in the world, and put yourself out there, Aries? Now, the eclipse energy, this is interesting, depending on where you are. So there's a regular total eclipse, right? Or a full eclipse where one the moon is in Earth, and moon and sun are in alignment in different ways. This one is where the earth blocks the light of the sun and the moon, because the moon doesn't really have its own light source. So a new moon is when the earth is in between the sun and the moon. And so the moon is in shadow. Notice a theme here. Moon is in shadow. And so what happens is we might feel discombobulated. We might feel, like disconnected from our earthliness, which is why new moon sometimes and full moons both encourage your leaning into intuition. But here's the other interesting thing. When we're disconnected from the others, from everybody else's stuff, because we're all in shadow and we're connected to the inner world, which is the new one, go inner world. Who am I? Aries, right? Eclipse, double new moon, really going deep to be able to see and to have that clarity if you're willing to go there with and have that courage to willing to go in like that and say to yourself, where is it that is my authentic self and where do I want to bring that forth? It is the energy that is supporting those questions. And you might journal about that. Like, what are some things that I'm afraid to share about myself with the world, with others, even with my bestie or my partner, or my, even my dog. You might not show your dog who you really are, or your fur baby. But the fact is that this new moon and the eclipse is very important to help you deep dive into who is that authentic self that wants to come out, and then setting the intention of allowing that and saying, you know what, it's safe for me to do this. It is safe for me to show up. And yeah, I might get some haters, but haters going to hate. But I might pick up some new people in my circle that really are going to feel better because I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm sharing who I am the way I am. And I'm not doing it because someone else thinks or because some external, I want this external thing. I'm doing it because I love it. I need to do something. I need to be who I need to be, you know? And so what the hybrid is, you have the full eclipse, which is when it covers it all the way up. And then there is something called annular eclipse, which is when it covers up the other heavenly body, but leaves that little ring of light around it. So those are two different kinds, but they're very similar. And it depends on where you are in the world, which you will be viewing. Um, but that's why it's called hybrid. But it's super powerful because you got both going on. Well, you have all three going on. So you have all this stuff going on where you're going to be invited to do this deep dive of who am I? What is my authentic self? Working with the shadow to kind of bring that forth intentionally. And then on Friday, we have Mercury retrograde, which Mercury retrogrades are not something to be feared. In fact, I love them because where else does the cosmos give you basically a month-long vacation from dealing with stuff? Because it's really not dealing with stuff, it's dealing with the outside world because Mercury is all about communication. Communication, we have to remember, especially these days, isn't just telephone or talking to people. So your words might get jumbled. We might not be able to communicate effectively verbally. We may not be able to communicate effectively via computer or digital, which is emails, text messages, cell phones. I don't know about you, but my cell phone gets wonky a lot of times. So my recommendation, if we're going to like go down the road of what to do in a preventative manner for Mercury retrograde, back up your phone, back up your computer, back up your tablet, clear the decks, go through your emails, all that kind of stuff. And as we move through this time, kind of make sure you're not hitting reply all when you don't mean to, that kind of stuff. And then contracts, because contracts communicate how you're going to go into a relationship with somebody or another business. So it communicates the parameters of that relationship, which is why people say don't sign stuff. Now, if you are working on something that was already planned before the Mercury retrograde started, you can go ahead and do that, but just be detail oriented about stuff. Like make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted before signing. But if you are in the midst of Mercury retrograde and someone's like, "Hey, I got this great deal for you and you need to sign on the dotted line," I'd be a little bit weary and I'd say either excuse me, um, read that thing like it is the Bible, like and edit it like, crazy, and or try and put it off till it's over, till Mercury retrograde's over, because starting something in a Mercury retrograde, because of the energy of it, what can happen is it may sound like a good idea, but at the end, when it goes direct again, things may unwind and unfold in a way that is opposite of what your intentions were during retrograde. So, that said, the timing is perfect in my opinion for this Mercury retrograde. It is in Taurus, which is an earth sign. All the retrogrades this year, the Mercury retrogrades are Taurus, rather earth signs. So the first one right now is Taurus. What that means is we're talking about money, comforts of home, work, values, finances, all the Taurian things. Like, what do I find what do I find delicious about life? Like, I love this sweater because it's so soft, and it's not really a sweater. It's kind of like a sweatshirt, but it's not hot. It's just cozy, and I love it. And then like having rich, delicious foods like good chocolate, not like crappy chocolate, but good chocolate. Um, and then also making decisions about finances because Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is values, which is money, business, things like this. So as we go into that retrograde, the setup is like, who do I want to be and what do I want to be? And we're having this big like shift about who we are. And then you're going to be given a month of internal discussion with self in it. Like, and then how do I want to develop that in a comfy, juicy, delicious way so I can bring it out into the world come say May or June? And in and how do I want my money to look? How do I want myself to look? How do I want like all the Torian things around who am I? So now we're being invited, who am I authentically? And how do I want to make that show up in the world so that it's comfortable for me, even if I have to work hard, because that's another Taurus thing, go plow the fields. I may have to like go out and do the things. There's some work involved, but I also get to sit under the tree and smell a daisy and then just enjoy the beauties of life because I'm doing it in an authentic way. And that month-long time gives you adjustment to revisit all that stuff. And I'm sure there's people talking about other ways of this going, but that's fine. But what I'm saying is this: you have this interesting flow and progression of energy. And here's what is one thing you can do with it is finding that authentic you and then spending about a month figuring out what does that show up as in the earth form, because in earth signs when you think about the energy of earth, so Aries is fire creation, the actual process of where the manifesting happens. Earth signs is how that shows up for you. So and how your intentions were created into the 3D, into this particular realm to be delightful and delicious and wonderful, which is normally what we would love, right? So right now we're in that great manifesting intention setting stage, that energy of Aries, and it's souped up by this new moon and lunar eclipse. And then it goes into this Mercury retrograde in Taurus, which is how do I want it to show up and how do I want to enjoy that? Enjoy that which is me, that is that authentic version of me that I want to share with the world. So do you see how that's a cool flow? And sometimes doing that kind of shadow work can be challenging when we're all by ourselves because it's hard to keep ourselves accountable to things that we're kind of like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I don't know about you, but like when I go to declutter a closet, I need to give a timeline, tell a friend, all this kind of stuff so that I get it done. Or like I know I set up, the junk people come in to remove things, so I know I have a deadline, right? Because if I don't have accountability and I don't have people to share it with, and I don't have somebody to be like, look at my lovely clean closet, there's really no joy in it. You're just like, oh, there's a bunch of crap in there that I don't want to deal with. So that's why I've created the circle. And that is actually the registration for the cohort, which is a cohort base. So once we're closed, we're closed. So you're not going to have these people rolling in and out. And the circle is basically what I've created, is a way to do shadow work in a fun and fascinating way instead of it being scary and overwhelming. Because what we're going to do is it's going to be energy shadow work, which we might do meditations, we might do where you meet your guides, we might do where you meet your shadow guide, and we talk about healing, and it shows up in a way that feels more empowered instead of this external, like scary, I got to deal with all my crap. Now, like I said in the videos, if you watch them, if you do have shadow work to do that does involve big T trauma, that's something I would encourage you to do with a therapist. If you have what I call little T trauma, which is like inner negative self-talk around that blocks you from doing the things you love to do because like when you were a kid or in school or even more recently, someone you showed whatever your work is, your baby, to someone and they were like, oh, that's ugly. Because that's kind of what it feels like when you bring forth some creation, whether it be a piece of art, a meal, it might be a book or a project, and you're like, hey, and this is my baby, please love it. And somebody says something negative, that and we internalize it, that creates shadow coping mechanisms that go in closet. We want to stop that cycle, release the stuff, and get to go forward. And so the reason I do it in an energy work, it's much more gentle. And I also have the coaching background. So we do one session of coaching. So each month you would get 3 sessions in the circle. They are 1.5 to 2 hours long. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it is not, I swear. Once you'll be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's over. And we do energy work based on what's going on. We do meditation journeys, which I love, which is guided meditation, but you journey into your inner world and you navigate talking to your guides and your higher self and all that kind of stuff and get messages from them and bring them back. And then we discuss them, kind of like how you might discuss dream imagery or something like that, but in a but it's the same thing, but from the meditation journey, and decipher that kind of thing. And then make a plan of, how do I, now that I know what's going on, how do I navigate it? And all that in a circle of people. It's a safe container of only 8 people, and I love that it's small. And I actually am selfish that I did this for myself because I wanna do this. So I would love to do this with all of you, and it would be my honor to support you with that. And because it's new, I'm offering a free sampler this Wednesday at noon. So I'm calling it the Lunar Lunch and Learn because we're gonna do it on the new moon, hybrid eclipse, and we're going to do a sample of what it's like to be in the circle and to like move some energy and clear some shadow space and really kind of um, just go in. And you might not know what's you're going in with, because I had one client that was like, I have no idea what this is, but it feels right, so I'm going to join. And then she left and she said, I am so glad I did this because I feel lighter, I feel more empowered, I feel like I can stand in my authenticity more. So I hope that when you come to the sampler, you get a little taste of that. So that's going to be on a Wednesday at noon Central, and you can register for that either through my email that is coming out. If you're not on my email list, make sure you go to my website, which is right here, and scroll to the bottom and join the email list, and it'll be sent to you tomorrow to join. If you're on the email list, there's a link in there. I'll put it on Facebook as well, but for the most part, I'm really only promoting it in my email list right now because it is the first one, and I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right for everybody. So, anyways, if you want to join the email list, you'll get an access to register for the free sampler, and then also a link if you already are kind of like, I want to be in the circle. So sign me up. There's only 8 spots for that. And then the registration for that closes on Friday, April 21st, 2023. If you're watching this later, just so we are aware. But anyway, so this week, just because I'm coming down to that 30-minute mark and I want to make sure that I share, we have new moon on Wednesday at this at the same exact time, like in that same space. We have the hybrid lunar eclipse, all in Aries, inviting in the intention setting for like the next couple of years about how do I want to embrace my authentic self, and do I want to embrace that? Because again, choices are important, and your autonomy and agency is important. So it's really up to you. Who do I want to be? Do I want to stay where I'm at because I feel safe in the discomfort zone? Or do I want to embrace my authentic self and maybe try something different? Because when you're like, you know what? Um, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go, but I sure as hell don't want to stay here. That might be your feeling. And so it might be more behooving to you to kind of say, you know what, I'm going to try this and step into my authentic self and see what happens. But that's the invitation for Wednesday. And that's going to last us a while because the eclipses are going to last, like the reverberation is going to be like a month. And then you'll see results through 2025. And then on Friday, we have Mercury retrograde for about a month. And you may want to like take note, maybe ask yourself, what has really caught my attention in the last 2 weeks? Like what things, what situations, and then once you kind of jot those down, maybe in bullet point form, you can kind of go, what are the similarities between these? What are the plot lines that are very similar in these situations? Because those plot lines are going to be what the movie is about in retrograde. But again, it's going to be in Taurus, so it's highly likely you're going to be seeing stuff like people inviting you or talking about who you are, what they think you are, and you being invited to say, "No, I want to write my own story. It's time for me to write my own story." And then when we go into the retrograde in Taurus, it's how do I want to, like, I'm going to sit down and plan, what does my script look like, how I'm going to present my movie about me to the world when it goes direct in, say, May, June. That's what's going on. So the best way I can say to do that is to allow yourself. Don't resist it. I mean, you can stand there on the side of the beach screaming at the ocean, but I don't know what good that would do. But it's a choice. But I do invite you, if you are one of those people that likes to participate in groups and feel supported by a safe container like that, I would love to have you in my circle for the next 3 months as we navigate this energy. I also would love if you want to just try it out and come on Wednesday and hang out, and we'll do some energy work. I think that would be great. Um, and I look forward to hearing about all of your stuff. If none of this is your jam, that's fine too. Just we'll keep going. And I love you so much. But, anyways, I will be sending out emails on this. If you have not signed up for my email list, go ahead and sign up below at the website. Just scroll to the bottom of the website and there's like a little form there for you to sign up. Until then, have a wonderful new moon. Happy new moon. Happy hybrid eclipse. Happy Mercury retrograde. Let's be positive about all this stuff because I think that that really helps navigate. And I am so excited to see how everyone unfolds. Please share with me. I'd love to hear from you. And until next week, I will see you in the vortex. I love you so much. Have a great week, y'all. Enjoy the shifts.